Hello, I am Jessie, the Sleepy Koala, and welcome. Today I will be going through my top 10 science fiction fantasy books. I've always felt a little bit wary of doing one of these because I didn't feel like I had read enough science fiction and fantasy to actually be able to put books up that are proper contenders, I guess. But I was watching a video by, I'm pretty sure it was Patrick Leigh, and he was saying that he does videos like this so he can track reading changes over time and how his tastes have changed between the different years after reading more books. So I thought that that is actually a really good way of thinking about it and decided I would like to do a top 10 science fiction fantasy list myself. And then in the future, I can do another one and see what has changed and what is still the same. Now, I will say this isn't ordered. I haven't actually ordered these for what is number 1 and what is number 10. This is just 10 books that I think are top science fiction fantasy books. Starting in first place, The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. This is a mammoth of a book. It's a mammoth of a series. It is nowhere near finished. There are 4 books out of 10 currently released, with the 5th book coming out hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years. This book series is amazing. It is a book about friendship. It is a book about war. It is a book about finding magic powers and leveling up. There is so much in this book. It has such an intricate plot. We follow several different characters as they wade their way through a war against another race on the planet, who at the beginning of the book killed the king for reasons unknown. Our 3 different characters, Shallan, Kaladin, and Dalinar, all have very different storylines that they follow within this narrative, with Kaladin being a slave, Shallan being a scholar, and Dalinar being a warmonger. We get to see the story from multiple different angles and really see different perspectives of war. The world building in this book is so complex and rich. There is so much to it and so much that you can learn about. There is a host of other characters as well to fall in love with, and Sanderson is well known for brilliant plotting. The magic in this book is also just so exciting to read about. Sanderson is known for his hard magic systems, and this one has a lot of rules with it as well. So if you're looking for something that is rule-based, this is a good magic system to go for. It isn't the hardest magic system out there. Compared to Mistborn, this is softer, and there are more blurry lines, but still, there is a lot going on in this magic system to the point where he rolls it out very slowly over the book so that people don't get overwhelmed by it because there's just so much happening. If you're looking for an epic fantasy that's going to keep you busy and going to have you coming back to it again and again and again, Stormlight Archive is definitely the one that I recommend. It is a masterpiece in storytelling and honestly is a must read. Next up, we've got The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This book is just absolutely brilliant. It follows multiple perspectives going along different paths at different points, and each one of them is so vibrant and rich. The characters are so well done, absolutely so human in nature. We begin the book with the world exploding and have to find out how people are going to survive this destruction of the world. Jemisin has a knack for fantastic storytelling. This still has one of the best, most natural reveals of something I have ever seen, and it was so incredibly well done. The world building as well is just incredible. This is a fantasy world that is very different to our own, and the way that the world wreaks havoc on the people is just mind-blowing. Jemisin is such a good storyteller, and I highly, highly recommend this series if you are looking for a completed fantasy trilogy to read. Next up, we have got 6 of Crows. This book holds a special place in my heart because it is the book that brought me to booktube, and I think it definitely deserves to be on a list like this. This book follows 6 criminals as they attempt a heist to rescue someone from an impenetrable fortress. Along the way, we learn so much about all of these characters. They are so well written and in depth. The narrative cycles between all of the different character POVs. So you get to see what it's like to be in all the characters' heads. We get these flashbacks that tie in so well to the main story. And to speak of the story, the heist in this is insane. I am still blown away thinking about what they try to accomplish and how they attempt to do it. And it is such a good read. If you're looking for a YA book that is fast, thrilling, and adventurous, this is definitely the place to look. This book is great. It has such a good plot, and the characters in it are phenomenal. The next book is Caraval. Caraval is so whimsical, and even though it has some darker moments, it just felt like such a light story. This story follows Scarlet as she runs up to the Caraval to save her sister Donatella, who has been kidnapped. Along the way, she meets this rugged pirate called Julian, who may or may not be there to help her. Who could tell? And then when she's at the Caraval, it's almost like this giant carnival, except it's also a game, and she has to try and win the game to save her sister. I loved the ending of this book so much. It just made everything click so very well. And I had a blast just reading this book, simply because of how, like, magical and mystical it is. There is no rhyme or reason to the magic in this book. So if you're looking for a harder magic system, this is not the place to look. This is a soft magic system. They do what they want with this magic. Caraval was a very easy read. It is a lighter book. It has a lot of really fun tropes in it that I really enjoyed. If you are looking for something that is fun, that is magical, and just a bit on the lighter side, Caraval is a great place to start. Next up, we have A Winter's Promise. This is a book set in our world, but after its destruction. The planet has been ruptured, and now all that exists are these giant floating masses of rocks known as arcs. On each arc, there is a family spirit who acts as a demigod, and each arc is populated by the children of that spirit. One of those children, Ophelia, gets married off to Thorn, who is from a different arc. This is an arranged marriage that neither Thorn nor Ophelia really want to be in, but yet Ophelia has to travel from her home arc of Anima to the pole, the frozen wasteland where Thorn lives, and situate herself within this cutthroat court where everyone is out for everyone else's throats. This is a story that has a lot of political intrigue to it. There's a lot of time spent developing the characters in this book, particularly the character of Ophelia, our main protagonist, and the plot really starts to pick up in book 2 onwards. I love the magic in this world as well. Each family spirit has a certain set of powers that they can pass on to their descendants. So all of the family powers tend to be grouped on their own specific arc, and there isn't all that much intermingling between these different land masses. But each family spirit passes on a very select type of powers. For example, all of the powers from Ophelia's original arc, Anima, are to do with animating objects, whereas those that come from the pole where Thorn lives are to do with illusions and mind games. I found myself really enjoying the magic system and how things interacted in this series, and it had just such wonderful relationship developments and well-rounded characters. Next up is another Sanderson book. We have got Mistborn. Mistborn is about a girl who lives on the streets, who is recruited by a gang of thieves who are attempting to take down the god that rules their society. This is another heist story, which is also mixed with a rebellion and an uprising. On top of this, we have got almost a Pride and Prejudice storyline that goes throughout, where our main character, Vin, gets to go undercover at balls and find out all of the secrets of the nobility within the city. These scenes are so much fun. It's such an interesting addition to a heist story, and I loved it. This magic system is very rules-based. It is probably Sanderson's hardest magic system, but that doesn't mean it is hard to learn. Sanderson does spread things out over the 3 Mistborn books, just like he does with Stormlight, so readers are not bombarded with a bunch of information to remember on how magic works all at once. He does very well at weaving in learning the magic while still enjoying the story and not ever really being overwhelmed. The twists and turns in this book were phenomenal. I found myself bawling at a certain point in this book, all the while continuing to try and read because I just couldn't stop. I just had to keep going. It is a lot of fun. It is a great introduction to the Cosmere. This was my introduction, and it's just such a great place to start. Next up, we've got King of Scars, and can we take a moment to just appreciate how pretty the hardback of this book actually is. This is just the normal edition. It just has all of this on it, on the normal edition. I am shook. I am just blown away by how pretty this is. King of Scars is not an entry-level book. This is the sequel book to the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and honestly, in my opinion, also the Six of Crows duology. I read Six of Crows, and then I read this. I haven't read the base series, but I'll get there. But I 100% think you need to read Six of Crows to fully understand like some of the world building that is happening in this book. So this is not an introduction book, but when you do get to it, it is so interesting. It follows new characters, but ones that we have known about from the previous series, and really fleshes out who they are. We get to see people struggle with some really difficult decisions and make choices that are not easy choices to make. We get expansions of the Grishaverse magic as well. We get to see new things that can be done with that magic. We also expand the borders of this world more as well and get to experience different places, as well as learning more about places that we've already been. I know that not everyone likes King of Scars and its sequel, Rule of Wolves, but I love them, and I thought they were fantastic fantasy books. Next up, we have got Ranger's Apprentice. This is a young adult series that I first started reading when I was in high school, and I loved it, and I still love it, and I still think it's brilliant. It follows Will, who becomes an apprentice to a king's ranger. The rangers in this kingdom are basically the spies. They are known for being sneaky, they are known for getting information, they are the spies of the kingdom. The series is made up of a bunch of stories instead of just one long story. Sometimes the books are a trilogy, other times they're a duology, sometimes they are standalone. Each of the stories follows Will and his friend Horace as they go on their adventures during Will's apprenticeship. There is not really magic in this world. The first book has some magical creatures in it, but they kind of drop off immediately, and I think that John Flanagan decided to backtrack on the idea of putting like actual magic into the series. So instead of being magical, this is just a typical medieval fantasy series. The books are very short in comparison to a lot of the other books that I've talked about today, and they are probably on the younger side of YA, closer to middle grade, but they are quick, they are easy, they are a lot of fun, and the characters are just delightful. I did almost a full reread of the Ranger's Apprentice series, plus its sister series, the Brother Band series, a couple of years ago, and I just adored reading through them again. So I do highly recommend, if you're looking for something medieval, men with bows and arrows, this is a great read. Next up, we have got Dragon Keeper, but not the one by Robin Hobb. I haven't read that one yet. This is the one by Carole Wilkinson. I read this book when I was quite young. I think I was in grade 5 at the time, and it was a new book that had just come out that was... I don't know if I'd call it middle grade or young adult. The themes of it are definitely more young adult than middle grade, that's for sure. But you probably could classify it as either, like with Ranger's Apprentice. But I remember that this book was up for an award, and it was sitting right at the entrance of the library on display for so long, and I couldn't borrow it out. And I just wanted to read this book, and then finally it was taken off display, and I was the first person to borrow this book, and it was so worth the wait. It was such a wonderful book. This book follows a young slave girl in ancient China called Ping. Ping saves the life of an aging dragon and then travels with him across the continent to get to the ocean. On this journey, she is also tasked with protecting this magical stone. Pursuing them is a ruthless dragon hunter, and he is out to kill the dragon and take this stone from Ping. It's such an inspiring story of bravery and friendship, and I loved just getting something set in feudal Japan. It was such an interesting setting as well. Definitely one that I highly recommend. I don't know how well known this one is. It seems like it's a pretty niche Australian book that didn't get that much international recognition, so I do highly recommend it. Lastly, we have got His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. I have got this very special edition, which I love. This is just the first book, The Northern Lights, and it is just gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous, and I got this secondhand. I still can't believe I have the whole set like this, and I can't believe I found the whole set looking this nice in a secondhand store, but I did, so it's great. This is the story of Lyra, a girl who is brought up in Jordan College under the eye of her uncle, who is an explorer and adventurer. Lyra has always wanted to go north with her uncle, but he has always denied her. One day, a woman arrives at Jordan College named Mrs. Coulter, who takes Lyra away on an adventure. Very quickly, we realize that Mrs. Coulter is not who she seems and is not a very nice person, and Lyra is tasked with escaping her and following on to her uncle in the north. I find the plot of this book to be very engaging, but also quite horrifying with some of the reveals of what is happening in the story. Hello, let's pretend that my memory card didn't run out and I'm not filming this on another day and that I didn't dress exactly the same to try and pretend that it's one video. Let's just forget all of that and get back to the book, shall we? The world building in this book is really, really interesting. It is set in an Earth adjacent type of world where a lot of the places are very similar, but the governmental structure is different and the way things are run are different. On top of this, everyone has what's known as a daemon, an animal companion who is linked to a human's soul. As well as this, we have this mysterious substance known as dust that seems to be showing things in the Northern Lights. We quickly learn that dust is a forbidden topic and not something people talk about in polite society, but our main protagonist, Lyra, is not very good at being polite. This is a wonderful story of a young girl who's looking for her place in the world and goes on quite the adventure as she tries to find where she fits. And that is it. That is my top 10 science fiction fantasy, though really they're mostly fantasy looking back on it. However, I cannot believe that I got through an entire top 10 fantasy list and didn't mention a single Shadowhunter book. This is a travesty. Cassandra Clare is my second favorite author, and I just forgot all of her books. I just forgot to include her. So we're gonna have an honorary +1 to this list. Lady Midnight is the first book in the Dark Artifices series. This is one of the many different Shadowhunter trilogies that fit within the Shadowhunter world. Like King of Scars, this is also not an entry-level book. I would not say to anyone to start with this book, as much as I think this is probably her best trilogy yet. Maybe? I think it has one of her best books in it. Actually, I'm not sure if I would say it's her best trilogy. But the second book of this trilogy, Lord of Scars, is my favorite Cassandra Clare book, and it is fantastic. This book follows Emma Carstairs, and she is trying to find information about the people who killed her parents, along with her parabattalion best friend Julian Blackthorn and the entirety of the Blackthorn family. They are going to investigate to see what information they can come up with. This is such a great series talking about love and talking about loss, and I think that Cassandra Clare has grown more poetic over time with these things, and I find so many little lines and tidbits in her books that I just have to note down because I think it's just really beautiful prose. She's the only author I do this with, and I've found that the Dark Artifices series has some of her most gorgeous quotes. Fun fact, I actually coveted quite a few of these quotes for my wedding vows and kind of smashed some of them together while adding in some of my own words, but I just think some of her prose in this is just absolutely gorgeous. Some of my favorite quotes include, "When you love someone, they become a part of who you are. They're in everything you do. They're in the air you breathe and the water you drink and the blood in your veins. Their touch stays on your skin and their voice stays in your ears and their thoughts stay in your mind. You know their dreams because their nightmares pierce your heart and their good dreams are your dreams too. But you don't think they're perfect and you know their flaws, the deep down truth of them and the shadows of all their secrets. And they don't frighten you away. In fact, you love them for it. Because you don't want perfect, you want them. As we all have the infinite capacity to make mistakes, we all have the infinite capacity for forgiveness." And one last one. "Sometimes the bravest things we can do is confront our own failings." I love these quotes so much. I just have a document full of them. And yeah, turns out recording them now was really useful because I used quite a few of them in my wedding vows. But to speak a bit more about the world of the Shadowhunters. Shadowhunters is, well, at least for this trilogy, an urban fantasy
set in our own world, but there is magic, there is magical creatures, the whole shebang. Our main protagonists are shadow hunters, half angels, half humans, who go around and fight the demons that break through from the other worlds. They are governed by their own government, they have their own country, and there's all these magical alliances that are going on in the background. This book takes place after the base 6 books, so the Mortal Instruments trilogy plus its sequel trilogy. This one canonically takes place after that. It is becoming harder and harder to break into Shadowhunters at a point that isn't the very beginning because of spoilers. There is only so many ways that you can enter this world now without getting spoilers for something, unless you just start at the beginning and work your way forward. But even then, the question of what is starting at the beginning is quite an interesting one. I'm actually kind of interested in doing a Shadowhunters reading order video. If people would be interested in that, please let me know, because that does sound interesting, but that sounds so much harder than the Cosmere. The Cosmere is still simple of here are your entry points, here is where you go from there. Whereas Shadowhunters has reached that next stage that the Cosmere is going to get to of here are all the things you're not allowed to read because you have to read the other things first. And we're already at that stage with Shadowhunters, so it makes it a bit harder. But if people would like that video, please let me know down in the comments and I shall endeavor to deliver. Okay, everybody, that is my actual top 10 plus 1. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed. Maybe you found a new favorite book that you want to try. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books down in the comments. Let me know your top 10 in the comments. And who knows, next time I do this video, it might be completely different. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye!